This is James Lupton, delighted to be joined with Adam Smith, the voice of boxing, as you are known. How are you, Adam?
I'm good, James. Thank you. Very good on this rather snowy Tuesday morning
It is
outside
indeed.
of my.
It is
Yeah,
indeed.
it's a little bit like boxing, isn't it? Unpredictable and always keeps us on our toes.
Definitely. I mentioned there the voice of boxing. You are obviously well known for your commentary work with Sky Sports for 30 years. And I wanted to sort of go back to the beginning a little bit to start with, Adam. This is something you wanted to do since you was about 10 years old. What was the moment that you realised this is what you wanted to do? Who influenced you?
Really good questions. Yeah, I think when I was young, I was a big football fan. I support Liverpool to this day. I managed to brainwash two of my three children. And yeah, I got really into sport. I liked playing it, football, tennis, cricket, everything really, but I wasn't very good at anything. I was always getting into the sort of low teams, the Bs, the Cs. I was never capable enough, I think, physically to be a good sportsman. But I loved watching sport since I can remember. I loved also listening to sport. I would hide under my Liverpool duvet with a radio. I used to have a plastic Coke bottle with a radio, and it used to just turn on, and I used to have it tuned into Radio 2 all the time, and always listen to the football and to the boxing, to the cricket, to anything I could. I think I like the sort of fantasy of what it was like out there, and actually trying to think about what I'd be like if I was any good at sport. Yeah, I just watched a lot of sport, and it came to me at a very early age, maybe 9 or 10. I turned down the television, and I used to do my own commentaries. I had a dictaphone. I used to sort of do the Grand National or Formula One or fights or Wimbledon, anything really, snooker, darts. I loved it all. And yeah, I think boxing was one of my interests, not necessarily my only one. I really liked Tommy Hearns because I liked his gold trunks, and I thought he could punch hard, and I liked his sort of lanky physique and the fact that he would get up. And I watched the Marvin Hagler fight, and that was one of my first sort of real memories, I guess. And I cried that night because I loved Tommy Hearns, and I was so sad. And I know it's one of the great fights in history, but for me, it'll always be a sad moment for me because he was beaten. And then I managed to get my way. I loved Baron of Wigan, and I managed to get into find my way into Loftus Road. I was at school near there, and I went to the Pedrosa fight. I was at the back of the stadium. I managed to get in, so that was an experience. Yeah, and then I liked Chris Eubank a lot. I looked up to Eubank as I liked his theatre. I liked his drama that he brought to the ring, the showmanship. And then, yeah, my mum was in the theatre background, and did a lot of drama. So it was either being an actor or a sports commentator. And again, I found out I wasn't good enough at acting. So it was always sports commentary. I went to quite an academic school. I was in the same year as George Osborne, who became the Chancellor, and those guys were going off to do amazing things in the city, and I had no interest. I wanted to be in sport, and I wanted to commentate. It's what I wanted to do from very, very young. And then I did various things. I took a gap year. I worked at TVAM. I did a stint in America at college, at university. Then I went to Warwick, and I read drama and TV and film. And I tripped into CNN in Washington for a bit. While I was there, I got to work in Atlanta with Evander Holyfield. I got out to the Bo Holyfield 2 fight where the fan man came in. And that sort of summed everything up for me because it was like, it was drama as well as sport. This mad guy on a rocket came in and crashed into ringside, and the whole fight was held up. And Bo was a little bit less athletic than Holyfield, so I think it suited Evander down the stretch, and everything turned. Millions of pounds of heavyweight history turned on that, and it was bizarre. And I just thought, oh, I like this, and I love storytelling, and as I said, I love that sort of fantasy element of sport and what could be. So I think that got me really hooked. And I came back and I worked at ITN on their home news desk for a while, which was really fun. I love news. So I did lots of news before I even joined Sky. And then when I joined Sky in 1994, I told Vic Wakeling, the head of sport there, and I said, I love all sports. And he said, I told him the story about the fan man. And he said, do you really like boxing? And I said, yeah, I do. He goes, well, it's we've only got one guy on the boxing team now, so we're about to go big on it. So yeah, that was my entry into boxing, and it took me a while to become a commentator. They said it will take you 10 years, and I said I'll do it in 5. And so I was very committed, very ambitious. And I guess in the early days of Sky, we had the opportunity to do lots of things. So I had a chance to do lots of voiceovers. I had a chance to go around the world, start working with Barry McGuigan, ironically my hero. We were around gyms all over the UK, and I got to spend a lot of time in America in fighters training camps, and I just sort of, I grew from there. And yeah, I got taken over by boxing. There was one wobble after a year when I was at James Murray and Drew Docherty's fight in Scotland about a year after I started Sky, and that was a tragic night where I was fighting, and then James Murray lost his life a couple of days after the fight, and that was horrendous. And it nearly broke me, and I thought, I don't know if I can do this. I ended up speaking to Mrs. Murray afterwards, and she said the boxing had saved her son rather than killed him. So that sort of got me back thinking again, and I just always wanted to really help fighters. And I guess I fell in love with fighters over the years, and to this day I still do. I've got 2 fighters out this week. I look after Sophie Alish and Ralphie Mary. I can't be in both places. One's fighting in Newcastle, one's fighting in York, all on the same night. And yeah, it's just nice to be able to give back. And I always say that fighters are the epicenter of everything we do. So yeah, I guess in a long-winded way, I've always wanted to do it. And never think I'm a good commentator or anything. I just think I do what I love, and I'm passionate about it, and I try really hard. And that's, I guess, what I would say to anyone that wants to be a commentator coming through. Just follow your dreams, and that's what I do. And I've never worked a day in my life.
For you mentioned about you enjoyed storytelling. For you, when you're ringside and as soon as the show starts, do you almost immerse yourself in a whole nother world? You mentioned fantasy. It's almost like a different realm. Do you go to a different place and almost forget the bubble around you?
That's a really good question. Yeah, I think so. And I think especially on ringside on the program, which was probably my favorite time at Sky, when Johnny and I had guests in and wonderful times on that set for 5, 6 years. And yeah, I think just before that, I used to be so busy with the head of sports role and Eddie calling me all the time and fighters and just problems. And I remember just putting my phones off, and Johnny would say, "Oh, turn them off. Just turn them off for an hour so we can do this and have some fun." And that was my favorite part of the week because I could lose myself into another world. And of course, it was real, and it was a good show because we got real guests in and we had great stories. But it was, yeah, you did lose yourself in a bit of a fantasy arena, just away from phones and stuff. And I think he used to say, "Oh, when I turn your phone back on, it'll have smoke coming out." And it was a bit like that. And I think being ringside, I mean, I'm just so honored to be ringside for every fight, any fight. I don't mind actually if I'm sat way back or sat in the front row. I just like being at events. I remember sitting quite way back for Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury's second fight in Vegas, and I sat with Freddie Cunningham, AJ's business manager, and Frank Smith, and we were sat sort of up, and it was great. We were really amongst the fans. It was great fun, and I love it. I'm just a fan, and and I always try and remain as professional as possible. I always think when you pick up a mic, everything else goes out the window. As in, yes, of course, we have business issues at Sky and agendas, but when you're calling a fight, you've got to call the seat in front of you. Otherwise, it's not fair on either fighter. So I was always very conscious of that. Picking up a mic, but yeah, I guess losing yourself in that, forgetting what's goes on outside of that ring, because ultimately, I feel like fighters are putting their lives, their reputations, their careers on the line for our entertainment. And for me, I owe them my duty, which is to call the fight as best I can, or describe it the best I can, and make it entertaining for the viewer. I've got a style that some like, some don't, but I'm not going to change it. I love it, I'm maybe I'm too dramatic, maybe I tell too many stories. I don't know, but that's the way I do, because I want to think that the people that are listening want to be entertained and want to know more about the fighters and hear the action as it comes sort of thundering through the screen. I haven't been in there. I mean, I've done a little bit of light sparring, but I haven't been in there like my co-commentators, like Jim Watt, like Glenn McCrory, like Matt Macklin, like Pauline Malignaggi, like David Hay, like Carl Froch, all of those guys who've been phenomenal. Tasha Jonas, Michaela Mayer, the women too. They've been in there. They know what it's like at the end of the sixth, seventh round when things are tough and you've got to find another game plan or a second win. And I haven't been there. But what I can do is I can describe the action and try and make it entertaining for the viewer. So yeah, I do think it is. There's a little bit of fantasy there still. I think I'm just looking up on my walls in my study, and I've still got my heroes up on my walls, and I've still got Tommy Hearns books. I've got Mo Salah. I've got David Gower. I'm surrounded by sportsmen and women. Katie Taylor's up on my daughter's wall, and I think it is. It's that realization that they do the amazing stuff, whether they do it on the court, on the field of play, or in the ring, especially in the ring, because it's such a dangerous, unforgiving sport. And I just am very, very fortunate that I've been allowed to do what I've done for so long. Yes, I think there is a duty, there is a professionalism, but there is a bit of fantasy there too. It is like living out a dream, really.
Do you feel a pressure at all to deliver the story, to deliver the action as it happened, but also to not be biased towards the promoter's fight and things like that?
Absolutely, yeah. I think especially with someone like AJ coming through and he's such a huge part of Sky and Matchroom and the whole sort of regrowth of British boxing, it was very difficult because we all wanted AJ as a business to succeed. But I think it was a good test when he fought Andy Ruiz, and we went with the story. We went with the fact Ruiz was the first Mexican heavyweight champion of the world, and that was his night. So I think you do have to absolutely do that. I remember Matt and I sort of being attacked at various times for being biased, and it's the one thing that really, really upsets me because I don't. I'm very honest. I get close to fighters. I'm very close to Katie Taylor. She's a family friend and others. And yet, I didn't think Katie beat Amanda Serrano the other night. And I have to be honest to myself. And I thought Amanda won the fight. Katie was great. They were both great. It was a fantastic fight. But I'd only be true to myself if I think that I didn't call that fight. But I'm sure I called it. It's not my job really to say who wins a fight, who doesn't. It's more for the viewers or for the boxers that have been in there, you know what it's like. But for me, it's a describing job. But yeah, I think it is important to keep totally on the level, and that's everything we've tried to do. And Matt laughs. I think it was an AJ fight against maybe it's the second Usyk fight in Saudi. And he said he saw online everyone saying you're so biased to AJ, and then another load saying you're so anti AJ. You can't really win. I think you just call it as you see it, and some are going to agree with you, some aren't going to agree with you. But I think the people that I've worked with, we watched a lot of boxing over a lot of years. I'm not saying that we're right or wrong, but we can feel a fight, and sometimes you make mistakes, sometimes you get rounds wrong, sometimes rounds are tough to score, especially with the women's fights. So over 2 minutes, very hard to score. But ultimately, all we can do is our best. And fighters do their best in the ring, and we do our best outside. Pressure. I think I felt pressure early on, but because I had sort of training in drama and voice work and stuff like that, I don't think I was a very shy kid, and I think that by doing that, and I would really push drama in any school for anyone to do. My eldest daughter did it. Really helped her with her confidence and some learning issues that she had. And I think that it's a really important thing to do because I was really shy and I had friends, but I was very nervous in a room in front of people. And I think with experience, you learn. Ian Dark, who was my sort of mentor as a commentator, used to say to me, you won't look back at your first 3 or 4 commentaries ever. They'll be terrible. They're all sort of high pitched, whatever. And he's right. I think sometimes, you put so much into it and you want to get really excited. And then you learn, I think, over the years to feel your body more and be real. I think I was very sort of uptight as a presenter at the beginning, very sort of wooden, staged, and trying to do everything right to a script. And actually, you sort of realize that people just want to see something real, something that they can connect with. So, no, I love it now. I've loved it for many years, being in front of the camera with a microphone in my hand. I feel at home. You put a mic in my hand, I feel at home. If I go into something else, another part of the world that I feel a bit anxious in, that's different. But no, it's my comfort blanket. Maybe it's where I feel at my best. And although I don't commentate on a day-to-day level anymore, and I think that I miss that, but I do a lot of work at Talksport, which is great, and I do it in a different way. And I'm really glad I'm doing radio because it was actually my first love. But I'm really sort of fixed on helping fighters and giving back now after my sort of Sky Sports career. So I miss it, the commentary. But I do think that my default position is to put a mic in my hand. I think if I've got a mic in my hand, I'm comfortable and I feel at home.
We spoke about the pressure of delivering the action as you see it, and you mentioned about the unpredictability as well in boxing. One fight that holds a special place in your heart is Corrales versus Castillo. Um, that round 10, especially. How do you justify this fight and this action with your words?
Thank you very much for bringing that up. Best fight I've ever had the privilege of commentating on. We actually did it from a Sky booth over here and not there. Jim and I were on our feet at the end of it. I think I've only got on my feet 2 or 3 times in my boxing career. And one of them was when Danny Williams won the British title with one arm against Mark Potter. Um, During AJ Coach. I can't remember. There were maybe a couple of others, but the one that really stands out is Corrales Castillo. And I think it had everything as a fight. First, it was world unification. It was a top elite fight. I like both fighters very much. I knew both fighters very well, especially Diego. And he had a lot of trouble in his life. He had many lives in his short 28 years, and I really loved him. And he was a very different person. Obviously, I grew up in a different world, and he had to deal with some real tragedy and trauma. And he was a brilliant athlete. He was a brilliant talker and crazy guy. And he was a cook. And he was all sorts of things. And he'd been in trouble. And I just got absolutely taken by him. So I had a special relationship with him, probably more after that fight, actually. But that fight, as a fight, yeah, 9 rounds of toe-to-toe war, just thrilling. And then the 10th round, I think one of the great rounds of all time, maybe even the greatest. You know, Corrales going down a couple of times and somehow getting back on his feet, stopping Castillo in the very same round. It was Jim Watt said, if you've seen it in a Rocky movie, you wouldn't believe it. And it was unbelievable. It was one of the greatest fights, I think, of the last 30, 40 years. Glenn McCall always argues that Barrera Morales one was better. He was there for that. It was an amazing fight. People have all got their favourites, but for me, Morales Castillo was number one. And I remember seeing Diego the week after. I was actually in Vegas the week after, really in Vegas as opposed to the studio. And I saw Diego, and he was just having a cup of tea in the media room. He was about to commentate, I think, on the fight the next weekend. And I just went over to him and I said, thank you. I said, thank you for giving us that. And he was still a bit bruised. And, yeah, we had a very special relationship. I get quite emotional about it because I think it was one of the times where I couldn't really handle it when he died. It was very one of my guys. I was in Portugal, and one of my guys in my team called me. Yeah, I was devastated. I absolutely loved Diego Corrales. He was everything that I admired about a fighter. And he had such a tough life as well. And it was such a shame what happened to him. But yeah, he was incredible, and that was an incredible fight. And Castillo was a funny guy who went to the mountains in Mexico and then saying something about me. And I guess tough guy.
But those
But yeah.
those fights that go down in history as the all-time greats, do you know at the moment that you're getting that type of fight? And is that easier or harder to commentate on?
That's another really good question. You're really bringing out some today. I think that it's sometimes you just got to go with what you feel. I remember actually that fight, thinking at the end, I remember saying that's the best fight or greatest fight in the last 10, 20, 30 years of boxing. I remember putting the mic down going, oh, I hope people think the same thing. You know, that was a big call. And I think I would probably, part of me would be maybe don't make calls like that because just sit on the fence a little bit. because you're really putting your neck on the line there. But I think sometimes you just got to go with what you feel. And I guess we've seen a lot of boxing over the years. And I guess when you're alongside incredible commentators like Jim Watt, um, Paulie Malignaggi, and Matt Clearman, these guys are great, great commentators. There's Glenn McCrory, who's a fantastic commentator. And Bob Mee, our historian and stats guy at Sky, just sort of one look at him, you sort of knew what he was thinking. And you knew within 30 seconds whether you thought the fight was going to be. It's just his way of reading fights. I remember watching Vasyl Lomachenko and Luke Campbell and just watching Lomachenko for the first round thinking, okay, I can't push this narrative, but I know what's going to happen here. And I just watched, as brave as Luke was in the ring, I think it was a really good performance actually by Campbell, even though he wasn't at the same level. But just watching Lola's feet, just thought, I'm never going to get this opportunity probably ever again to be this close to a magician's feet and just watch him. And I just watched his feet for about 6 rounds of that fight. And I just, wow, it's incredible. I guess you do. You sort of feel it. You feel fights. And sometimes you've got to put comments out there. I think I've always, being under Sky, being a sort of commercial corporation, huge empire, you've got to play things safe sometimes. There's rules and regs. Can't be sometimes highly controversial. You've got to tell the story, but I think you've got to also remember the audience that are watching. Whereas it's not just a trade boxing audience, or it's you've got to think about who's out there and who you're working for. Like on TalkSport is different, I think, to some of the Sky box office fights, or maybe if I'm working for an American organization or something in the Middle East, you've got a slightly different take on it. So you can't really change the way you do things, but you've got to be wary of who's out there and who you're talking to. But yeah, I think that sometimes you've just got to feel it and you've got to go with what you believe. Again, it comes down to passion. Someone said to me the other day, they came up to me at an event and said, "Well, how do I become a commentator?" And I said, "Do you really want it?" And they said, "I really want it." I said, "Great." I said, 3 things I would say is dedication, passion, and don't take no for an answer. Right? Just keep going, smash the doors down. Those are the 3 things. But I think at the core of it is passion. I'm more passionate about this. I love my kids, I love my family, and of course I'm passionate about them in a different way. But I'm more in a work environment. I'm more passionate about fighters than anything, and therefore that passion comes out in fights. And if they're great or they put an amazing effort in, I want the world to know that they've done that. And it doesn't matter whether they're a 4-round fighter or whether I'm working at a big world title fight in Saudi or whether I'm working a really good GBM British show in Sheffield. It doesn't matter. The fighters are the same. They've all got their dreams. They're all trying their best. They're all doing what they need to do. And I have so much respect for them that I want to make sure that they get my best as well.
You mentioned that connection with the fighters and the passion for the fighters you have as well. I want to ask you, who's the fighter? You've seen so many good and bad fighters. What one fighter didn't live up to their potential that saddened you?
These are really good questions, by the way.
Thank you.
I'm really. Who's the one fighter that didn't live up to potential? Frankie Gavin. Thought he was going to be outstanding. He's won. Alan Temple back in the day was a double ABA champion. You might not remember. He was partly from Southport. Never really made it to pro. Peter Richardson, another good amateur, never quite made it to pro, but cut a lot. Frankie Gavin stands out to me as somebody that I think, I'll never say if I waste his talent because he would still work hard to get in the ring. But I think Frankie will be honest with you now, and he had so much ability. And it just goes to show that ability and without dedication doesn't get you as far. Dedication gets you very far. I did my podcast, The Voice of Boxing, recently with Reza Ali, who's had an incredible life, awful, tragic, traumatic life. and he's unbeaten at the moment. And he knows that he may not be the most talented and skillful of fighters, but his dedication and his self-belief and his will to win, he believes is greater than anyone else's, and therefore that will give him an edge. I remember Scott Quigg, not really an amateur, a kickboxer, and didn't really have the skill set. I didn't think to go on and become a world champion, but did. Anthony Crolla, another one that has done so well. I think Chris Billum-Smith has really done incredibly well for maybe the ability that he has. I'm not, again, it's not a slight. I think he's got plenty of skills, but he's not as skilled as some of the others at elite level. But he's made up for it in incredible determination, persistence, dedication, attitude, all of those things to bring the very best out in yourself. So I think in a way, I always say the two best fighters I've seen from the different sides of the pond in my time in boxing are Floyd Mayweather and over here Joe Calzaghe. And the both of them are unbeaten, although I thought Joe lost to Robert Reed and I thought Floyd lost, as I said, to Castillo. You need a bit of luck along the way as well. But in the gym, they were the best fighters I've ever seen. And in the ring, they were the best fighters I've ever seen. And they also kept themselves in immaculate shape. So their dedication to winning and their dedication, well, it just matched their talent. So it went hand in hand. So when Floyd used to say, I go to a nightclub and I take my sneakers and run back, he was always in shape. And I think that those two need to go hand in hand in boxing. It's such a brutal sport because you can have all the dedication and not the talent and not get that far. You can have all the talent, not the dedication, and not get that far. But if you mesh them together, and I think dedication is even more important in many ways. But if you've got some talent but loads of dedication, you could make it to that top level. Whereas if you've got loads of talent but not much dedication, you're never going to make it. And I think it's a shame because you see some of these really talented fighters come through and they don't quite live up to what they did. I mean, there's lots of fighters I think should have been a world champion. I think Matt should have been a world champion. I thought we got robbed against Felix Stern. With Jamie Moore was a better fighter than Matt Macklin and didn't become a world champion. I think it just was timing, injuries, the era that he was in. There's lots of different things. Harold Graham should have become a world champion. There's loads of fighters that didn't quite make it, but that wasn't down to talent and dedication. That was just probably down to a bit of bad luck. So yeah, I think I'll come back to you on that. I'll have a good think about some of the Americans maybe that haven't quite lived up to their full potential. Ones I thought would be amazing, quite make it. You tend to forget those, don't you? You tend to think about the ones that stand out as opposed to the ones that fade away. I'm sure there's loads.
You mentioned Frankie Gavin there, Adam. In terms of, you mentioned dedication, is there also a difference between a successful amateur and a successful pro? Because when I look at Frankie Gavin, I also think of David Price, Audley Harrison, and as an amateur, they look like they're well on their way to professional world champions. And then when they turn over, something just doesn't click.
Yeah, there's no definitive outcome if you're a very good amateur that you're going to become a very good pro. But I think the majority of very good pros have been very good amateurs. Fabio Wardley tears that script up. He's done it ever so well, but he's not quite at top level yet. And he might find it difficult against fighters that have been sort of, I guess, schooled from a young age. It's hard to turn to the sport late. AJ did it, and he's made a very, very big success of his career. Did he manage to go through unscathed and unbeaten? No, it didn't matter, not really. So I think that you can take different cases for different fighters, but it's not always the winning formula. But there's no secret that Joe Calzaghe won 3 ABA titles at different weights and should have gone to the Olympics and became an amazing pro. And Floyd Mayweather got robbed. I was there in Atlanta, got robbed blind of a gold medal I thought in the Olympics, and then became the best. So there's definitely no, and Usyk as well, 250 amateur fights. Look at his success in the professional ranks. So I think it's massively important, but it's no definitive thing. And I think also some fighters get a little bit lucky to win big tournaments as an amateur, and then they get into the professional game. It's different. I think Ricky Hatton was a very good amateur, but I think he was a better professional. I think some styles really gel as a pro, and you take the likes on that sort of style, like a Mickey Ward, maybe, who were better pros than amateurs. I mentioned Scott Quigg already. Other fighters who had very little amateur career end up as world champions. Can happen. Carl Thompson was one kickboxer. Kickboxers do it, but fighters with little boxing experience. But I think it's a good recipe. I mean, for any young boxer that wants to get in, I would say have a good amateur career and then find the right time to go pro. But it is a different sport, and I think Audley found that out. Heavyweight is a very hard division, of course, because one fight can set you back a long way. And David Price, unfortunately, walked into Tony Thompson, and then I think for once Frank Maloney made a very bad decision. I think he was a very good promoter, but I think he made a very bad decision to put David right back into the fire with the same guy, which is why I'm really pleased AJ's not playing down with the fire straight away now, because sometimes I think it's a bad move to put people straight back in when they've had an experience like that. They do need a bit of rebuilding. Fighters are delicate. They're very delicate creatures, and they want to fight. They want to be everybody, but they have to be guided as well. That's what managers and trainers do. Have to be good to fighters as well. They're the epicenter of everything you do. We have to look after them. So there's no right or wrong on the amateur professional thing, but I think the more successful you are as an amateur, the more likely it is you'll have a successful professional career. Someone like Ben Whittaker is very interesting. Silver medalist in the Olympics, very, very talented, incredibly skillful, but already there's the question mark about his power or about maybe what happened in the Cameron fight. And look, it's a bad night at the office. He comes again, he goes back to the drawing board. But it'll be interesting in the next couple of years to see if he's got that, that physical strength and that punch ability to be able to deal with a very difficult world like heavyweight division. He's got the talent and the skills, and he's got the dedication, and he's got the personality. So he's got everything there. But sometimes it doesn't quite work. Whereas I look after a fighter called Carl Davis, who spars with Ben, and he's going through the small hall way. He's 8-0. He's got another fight in a couple of weeks in Nottingham, and he's just going steadily. So I think sometimes if you're pitched into the limelight, it can be hard because you're rushed. So I think it's a very clever sort of mix of matchmaking, of transitioning from amateur to pro, of taking on different styles, working them out. And there's no rule, one rule fits everything. Boxers are different characters. They want to go at their own paces. They can't go into a ring believing they're not going to win, unless maybe you're a seasoned journeyman and just know that you want to survive so you can fight the week after. But the majority want to go in there and they can't. But we know one is going to lose and one's going to win, right? Chris Billam-Smith, I'm sure, was extremely confident against Ramirez last weekend and vice versa. But one's going to, unless it's a draw, one's going to lose. It's just the way of the world. And I think I always tell fighters that you're going to lose. I mean, what happened to Calzaghe, to Sven Otka, to Marciano, to Mayweather is very, very lucky. Lennox Lewis was the greatest heavyweight we've ever produced, and he lost dramatically twice. I said to AJ, he came around to this house when he was 15, 16 and 0, and he was chatting to me about his career, and he was doing homework with the kids, and he was on great form. And I said to him, what are you going to do when you lose? How are you going to deal with it? And he said, I'm not going to lose. I said, Josh, you will. I said, it's not a problem. I said, we lose at things every day in our lives, but we win as well, right? It's not a problem. This is just protect it as long as you want, but you're going to lose. And actually, the better story is how you come back from it. And I said that to him because I thought, when you lose, if you lose 2 or 3 times and suddenly your career's over, or you get injured like poor Spencer Oliver or others have, Michael Watson, Paul Ingle, terrible injuries that they come back from. What are they going to do afterwards? So I was trying to plant some seeds in him that, as much money as you make, and AJ's a different story. He never has to fight again. He doesn't want to, but which he will, by the way, because he wants to. But you have to think of other. There is a life outside of boxing. You're a long time retired. It's a short career, and I'm very, very passionate about that area of after care and after retirement. And I think the education is to tell these youngsters when they're coming through and they haven't had that sort of rude awakening in many ways, and they are these prospects touted for greatness, but they just get reminded that it's not always going to be like that. You're going to have rainy days, and the people that are around you on rainy days are the most important people because they're going to help you structure your life. Because if you're 35 and you're retired and you haven't made that money and you haven't had that dream career, what are you going to do next? Because you focus yourself for so long on boxing or in any sport, on tennis, on whatever. And I've helped scholars at Sky. Daniel Altmaier was one of mine at Sky in the tennis world, and he had his ups and downs and injuries. And he's managed to get into the top 100 in the world. He's got a nice living now, but he knows that tennis is only part of his life. And before, I think he thought it was all his life. So I think it's important that athletes realize that there is life after. You've got to grab what you can, of course, and do the very best you can in this life. But 35 onwards, 30 sometimes, if you're a lighter fighter, you're a long time retired. And I'm a believer that you should never retire from life. So, it's hard when you've been like being in an army, I guess, when you've been sort of institutionalized into doing something for so long, and then you have to do something else. So I think it's important that they realize that they have to look at it as a business. And that's the hard thing. And sometimes you stay as an amateur and you go and do other things. I remember Callum Simpson telling me the other day that he was with a cohort of amateurs who were much better than him, but they all drifted off. They didn't have the education or the dedication, rather. They all wanted to they just got bored of it and did different things. So there's so much needed to become a successful professional fighter. And it's not for the faint-hearted. And I think that's maybe why we respect them as much as any sportsmen or women in any arena, particularly for me, the women, because of what they've had to battle through to get anything near sort of the quality of pay and the quality of attention, and still they don't. But it's so much better than it was, obviously, 10 years ago. And that's a massively important thing certainly for me, having two daughters. I've got a son, and he's like, okay, I can go and do anything. I want my daughters to know they can do anything. Nothing can hold them back. So I think it's brilliant. We've got commentators and sportswomen, and the likes of Katie and Amanda and Tasha and everybody, and Savannah Marshall. It's fantastic. They've lived their dreams. They've committed themselves. So yeah, I think, look, there's a lot of things you need, which is why I think I'm in a sort of experienced position now at my stage in life. I've come back from cancer. I've had my own problems. And I think now I'm in a situation where I really want to give back. Even if that's just a bit of advice to Sophie or to Kyle or to Naraldo, the fighters I look after, or to Chanel Dye, who I'm friends with in the MMA world, or whoever I come across. It's just bits of advice to say, hey, enjoy it while you're here, plan for the future, and surround yourself with good people. And you've got a chance.
What's your take on Saudi, the Riyadh season, Turkey Al Sheikh? He's recently acquired the Ring magazine. A lot of social media and fan bases on there sort of feel like eventually he's just going to try and take over, almost be like a Dana White of the UFC, have the one promotion, be just the Riyadh season, potentially the Ring magazine belt will be the world title, and it will make the promoters like Eddie and Frank sort of obsolete, some people are thinking. What are your thoughts on Turkey, and what do you think his vision is for the sport?
Wow, how long we got? I think Turkey Al Sheikh has been incredible for boxing. He's changed the landscape, the face of our sport. The sport always goes through cycles, and normally around Olympic time. Let's hope that we get the Olympics in LA. We have to have boxing in the Olympics. That's not my battle, but if anyone wants me to help that out, I would, because I think it's so important. But normally we have cycles in boxing, and we have sort of places which are hot, I guess. And America was for many years. Vegas was the destination, or Madison Square Garden, HBO, Showtime. Us at Sky, we've been in it for, say, us still feel part of it. We've been in it for 32 years, I think, 33 years maybe, and never had a year out of boxing. Everyone else has gone by the wayside. Every other channel has dipped in and out, but Sky never have stopped doing it. And I think that, yeah, we've had times where it's not been great in England, and then it's been rebuilt, and it's been stadium shows. There's been times in Germany where it's been huge. So I think there's always been sort of pockets and areas. And this is the time for Saudi, and they're putting their money where their mouth is. They want to put the best fights on. And the most important thing of all of it is that the fans are getting great nights and great fights, which they deserve. And even more important, the fighters are getting opportunities that they wouldn't have had before, and they're getting paydays that they could only have dreamt of. So those things are amazing. I was in hospital and I came out of hospital, and the first press conference I went out of curiosity because Frank and Eddie were meeting. And I worked with Frank Warren for 15 years, Eddie Hearn for 10 years. And never did I ever think that would be a possibility. And well done, George Warren and Frank Smith, and Spencer Brown, and everybody behind the scenes who made that happen. But there's one man that made that happen, or one organization, that is Turkey Al Sheikh and Salah and what they've done. They put everything almost under one umbrella, or certainly they've given opportunities to Ben Shalom, to Khalid Sauerland, to Oscar De La Hoya, and hopefully with my GBM hound is the Asif at some point, because if you've got fighters, then they can fight, and it's an open season. So I think what Turkey obviously he's trying to shine a good light on Saudi. Obviously, I've been to Saudi many times. When I first went, there was a lot of resistance. We went with AJ for the second rules fight. That was the first time over there. And we took a big team, and there was a lot of women on the team, and it was difficult. It was hard. And I think that as a country, they were changing. They had a lot of young royals, a lot of young people that had been educated in Britain and in America. And I think whereas they've always had customs in Saudi Arabia and difficult things to get your head around, there was a feeling of change. And I felt that every time I've been back, which has been many times now, I always feel a sense of warmth and welcoming, lovely people. And I feel that now seeing women in very, very senior roles is fantastic for me. So yes, there may be still a way to move with that, but I think they've moved fantastically quickly. I think it's really good to see. I think it's great to see that the world is embracing what they're doing, what they're moving. And you're always going to get critics, but for me, they have totally changed the boxing world. Turkey Al Sheikh is a good man. I had the privilege to meet him. He's a boxing fan. He loves what he's doing, and he's doing it. He's delivering what he said. And I think getting things like the Ring magazine, sort of reinventing them, is a fantastic way. We can't sit still. When Logan and KSI fought, and I was like, "Are we really doing this?" And then I went, "Okay, we're up for the challenge. We'll do it." And actually, it was great fun. And you've got to embrace change. And I didn't really agree with the Jake Paul Mike Tyson event last week. I didn't agree with it. Look, anything that is entertaining, that's eyeballs on, then people can watch. Absolutely, there's a massive curiosity and intrigue, whatever. But I didn't agree with it as a fight. I just don't think a 58-year-old should be anywhere near a ring, especially a legend like Mike Tyson. It was incredibly hard to watch and incredibly sad to see. No slight on Jake Paul. I wish Jake well. I'm looking forward to his next fight, but it shouldn't have been with Mike Tyson. And I didn't really know whether it was an exhibition or a fight. And they changed the rules. It was 2-minute rounds. It was 40-ounce gloves. And to be honest, I'm just glad it was a sort of controlled episode and no one got hurt, and it will pass. And yeah, did Netflix do a great job? Was Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano a great fight? And Barrios and Ramos? Yes, brilliant. So there's some good stuff that came out of that evening as well, apart from the half an hour that we had to sit through that. Really sad having been there at Tyson's peak. No, I digress a little bit, but what I'm saying is that everything is changing and you have to be there to change. But if you told us 2 years ago that Frank and Eddie would be having dinners, if you told us that Bivol and Batalia would be meeting in a ring, or that all the heavyweights would be fighting, or that we would have stellar shows like we are, or we have Matchroom Queensby going against each other, and all these oddities but amazing sort of inspirational events, and Usyk Fury twice in a year, and all that, it's just mind-boggling. So yeah, a lot of fans I talk to here say, "Oh, it's tough, flying to Saudi, it costs money, and they can't drink there, and all these sort of things." I'm like, yeah, but you can watch it, or you can go and embrace the country, and you can go and see what they're trying to do, or you just can go for the event because they're great fights. The atmospheres are getting better. I think some I've been at have been a bit weak, some have been great, some have I don't think that's really what it's about at the moment. I think it's about putting on these incredible shows, the promotional stuff, the films they've done, the build up they've done. And I think, yeah, getting it all under one umbrella, a bit like I guess the UFC do. My brothers have sort of lost interest in boxing because of the splinters, the Wild West nature, the governing bodies, everything's, they don't really understand it. Whereas UFC package it nicely, or PFL have done it with a league system. You can sort of understand it. I think what Turkey's trying to do is get that to a point where, yes, there will be one champion and there will be everybody fighting under this sort of unit, I guess. And I think it's very, very exciting. I think it's important to remember grassroots, which is what they're trying to do, I think, as well, with the Mike Tyson Boxing Club, and also what they're doing by coming around the world, by going to LA, by going to Wembley, by being Riyadh season overseas, or maybe they'll go to China for Chilai Zhang, or Africa for Martin Bacoli. There's options there. And I think they should still do that, as well as everybody just heading to Riyadh for that season, because it gives everybody a chance to get to events and maybe can't afford to go. Always thought that with Vegas, you save up for a big weekend in Vegas. And I'm sure Vegas are crying out for those big fights again. And there's some American fights that are still happening there. So who knows how long this will wave or go on for, whether it will be a year or two or whether it will be permanent. They're going up to 2034 with the World Cup and Saudi Vision. So I don't think it's going to stop anytime soon. And I think he would like to get it more enclosed so that you are getting the best fight, the best. The problem with that, of course, is that still you have to build fighters. And we find at GBM that there are still a lot of Brits that can't travel, that want to watch boxing. So I think it's important that you've got really good shows happening in Britain at the same time. It's great. I was at Manchester for the Catchall and Prograis fight, Frank Warren's fight with Shabazz and Liam in Birmingham. Or we've got this week I'm with Sophie at the Harlan Eubank fight in Newcastle. Next week I've got Carl Davis in Nottingham. There's small halls, there's big shows. There's Tasha's back on the 14th of December. There's lots coming up. And I think it's important that we get that, as well as Usyk Fury and everything that's happening in Saudi. But we've got these at Sky. It was all about the 3 or 4 pay-per-view nights a year. We kept the trade fans happy with the boxing content, but really, as a business, it was all about those great nights that you can sort of stop traffic with. And I think that's sort of what Turkey is doing. He's putting these big sort of flags in the Saudi sand, and also he's trying to change it so that everybody gets in. Are the governing bodies going to be next? Who knows? We don't know where he's going to stop at, because he's got the money. But again, I come back to what I said earlier. It's about fighters getting those golden chances, because their careers are short, and it's about fans getting those dream matchups that were only dreams. We lost out on so many fights, on Lewis and Bowes rematch from the Olympics. We lost out on Hatton Witter, it's a British fight. We lost out on Calzaghe and Froch, was a big one that went. We should have had 3 Mayweather Pacquiao's. We should have had 3 Fury AJs by now. We lost out on AJ Wilder. There's so many fights that haven't happened. And I just can't see these things not happening under Turkey's brilliance and what he's done for boxing. And I think the key with this, and I go back to being passionate about what you do, what I do, and what he's doing, he's passionate about it. And yes, he's in that position. He's close to MBS. He's got the money. He's got the ability to do this. But you've got to be all in the boxing world. And to me, he seems all in. He seems to want to do this. And that's great to have a fight fan at the center of this. It's not some sort of business guy that thinks, oh, yeah, I'll get into boxing because it can make some money. It seems like he loves what he's doing. And long may it continue.
The last question, Adam. While we can never predict the future in boxing, what do you hope happens in the future of your career? Is there anything on the bucket list that you've not ticked off yet?
Hmm. Wow. Having got through brutal bladder cancer, which was really, really, really hard, and I've never had a day sick in my life. I'm very grateful, and I know this may sound cliche to some, but I'm very grateful to be here. I'm very grateful to wake up in the morning. I have a very different perspective on life. I used to wake up stressed, um, phone going, my head going. I used to really find it hard, and I think in the last few years at Sky, I found it really hard. I was burnt out. I needed a change. I needed to do different things. So I'm really glad that I've got a myriad of stuff that I'm into now. I'm doing some managing and mentoring and helping fighters for Summit Sports. I'm doing some promotional advising and some commentary for GBN. I'm working with Loungers TV on my own podcast, which is really exciting. Got George Groves on today. And so, yeah, I'm doing things I like doing. I'm working with RTF, which is one of Alexander Usyk's companies. I'm doing some stuff, many sort of appearances at the moment with Talksport, which I'm really enjoying. Really enjoying. I'm sort of finding maybe that radio is my, it's like coming home almost, like when I was a child, and I love that, just the sound of radio. So I'm really pleased that I'm getting those opportunities. And I'm doing the odd event. I'm doing an event with Fabio Ward coming up in January. I've done some great stuff with Lennox Lewis on his tour. So I'm enjoying doing a lot of different things, a bit of writing for Boxing News. But put work aside, um, I've got my family, I've got my three kids. They've all got dreams and aspirations of their own. My eldest wants to be a criminologist. My son wants to make a ton of money in business. My daughter, at the moment, she's flicking between Love Island or The Outer Banks or something that she wants to be on. And hey, let her live her dreams. And that's what I want them to do. So for me, what's my bucket list? It's to live every day, to get something out of every day. I've really enjoyed this, so thank you for this. That's something I can enjoy having done today. So I'm spending some time with George Groves, who's one of my favourite people a bit later on, and I've got a night when I'm with my family tonight. So just for today, I'm in a good place, and I think I like to live like that now because I don't know whether I'm going to be here tomorrow or in 30 years. I very nearly died on three occasions last year, and I'm very in touch with my mortality and know that we're only here for a short time. I thought I was invincible before. I think my ego was up there, and now I don't do that anymore. I work at the food bank. I help give back. I help advise. I stop and talk to people now. I didn't maybe do that before. To be honest, I didn't really know what a food bank was before I worked in it. I find that a bit embarrassing to admit, but yeah, look, I just my bucket list is that I want to live my life and be around people that bring the best out of me and still be connected to the sport that I love. Even if I just dance around the edges now, and yeah, of course, there's a bit of FOMO when you're sitting back in the media box at Wembley and you haven't got a mic in your hand. Some of the big fights, but I've been there. I've had my time in the sun doing a lot of that stuff, and I'm very grateful for every opportunity. And I'll give my all into Manny Quartermain and Jack Bateson or Razor Ali and Niall Berry on December the 7th, as I will for I'm asked to pick up a mic for a world heavyweight title fight in 2025. I'll always do the best I can. But for me, it's not just about commentary anymore. It's not just about working for an amazing company like Sky, which cut me in half and I bleed Sky. I'll always thank them for everything. But I needed a change. I needed to run my own life and be out of the corporation and just do some different things. And I'm very close with the managing director of Sky Sports, Jonathan Lish. They were super supportive through my cancer, and they're great friends and great people. But a lot of people have moved on from Sky, and I'm not the first, and I won't be the last. And I had 29 very wonderful years there. But I've had a great year being out. I found myself again. I'm healthy. I'm cancer free. Just for today, I'm in a good place. So yeah, I think my bucket list is enjoying what I can out of each day. And yeah, they give me a mic and I can commentate on Music Fury or on something like that, and it'd be a pleasure to step in and do that. But I'm not worried if I never get the opportunity to do that again, because there's many other things that I'd like to do and get back to.
Adam, just like boxing, it's been an emotional roller coaster today, but thank you very much for your time. It's been a real pleasure speaking to you.
Thanks very much.